Dear Clash Guards, I confess my emotions have been a mess. Cause you changed everything we ever knew. From witches to poison and the Queen Walk too. Whoa, I've been wrong, I was wrong. Been at town all night, way too long. Getting hogs and Valkyries. I'll push that button and believe in you again.
Welcome to episode 81 of Pineapples and Thorns. I'm Kat, and surprise tonight, I have with me the one and only Fado. Welcome back, Fado.
Honk, honk.
Good to see you again. Well, or not see you, but hear you.
Yeah, it's never good to see me.
Well, this is true. It's excellent to hear you. And with us tonight, we have, as a special guest, Trample Damage. Welcome, Trample.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It is always fun to chat with you guys. And hi, Fado. I haven't talked to you for a while. It's good to hear your voice.
Hi, Trample. I've heard your voice plenty recently. If you catch my drift,
My apologies.
keep pumping that content out.
I try. So that's one of my spare time things. So I enjoy the sound of my own voice. So it's equally rewarding for myself.
Well, it's been a while since we've had the pleasure of having you as a guest here, Trample. Why don't you just update us a little bit on what's happening over at the Good Guys?
We have been doing pretty well. We are in Champ 1 Clan War League. I guess it's probably like the coolest and most exciting thing. We have 2 months in a row that we've been in because we promoted in January. Yeah, we promoted in January. We came in second or third in Champ 2 in December, but we had a chance to, I think we had a chance to win coming down toward the end. And then we had a war where a couple people choked. I won't name names, but a couple people choked in December. But then we promoted in January and we had a good showing in the smaller Clan War League format in February. And then we finished in third last month, which was kind of cool because coming down to the last war, we opened with a victory against the team who ultimately placed first. And we clobbered them. I mean, like wars 1, 2, and 3. I'm sure everybody else was like, "Oh no, these are the folks to beat," and they're all such nice people because they're good guys. And then in War 4, like 3 people in the good guys were like, "We should get 1 stars because we shouldn't make it so easy."
Because we're good guys. It would feel bad. You're empathetic for all the asses you're kicking, and
Figure I could give them a fair shake. And so we lost that war, unfortunately. And then we got clobbered by one of the lower ranking teams in the 4th war. No, that was the 4th, in the 5th war. And then we, did really well again in War 6 and War 5. No, we won 1, 2, and 3, lost 4 and 5, did really well in 6. And in War 7, if we were victorious against the team that had been previously unbeaten, then the guys we beat in the first round would have won. And we absolutely crushed them. And they had sent some messages saying like, "Let us win." And I was like, "Oh, now we're definitely going to make sure like we're bringing our A game." And we got 41 stars.
Here come the sketches.
Yep. And it was really cool because the clan that we beat in War 1, who ultimately did win because of us beating that clan in the last war, they changed their clan description to say something like, "We love the good guys," or something like that. So that was cool. It was really exciting. And we knew after the first couple wars we weren't going to demote. And, there's not really there's some element of bragging rights, I guess, of like, we won our Champ 1 Clan War League division, but, and so I guess a couple of extra Clan War League medals, but it just felt good going into the back half of the week feeling like we can't demote, so we're just enjoying ourselves, and it felt like less stress. And so that's probably how we got 3 1-stars in War 4, whatever. But it's been fun. We've been doing pretty well in war, and the team is working pretty well together. We've got people working with like a wide variety of attacks, like some super creative and fun stuff, and everybody's been in a good mood. So things are going pretty well. Some of the other clans in the family have had some turnover in leadership, and so I'm trying to get a little bit more involved with some of the other clans just because they don't have as much support. And if you've got one of the clans, the leader had been inactive for literally a month, and I sent him a message. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to move one of my bases back over. Would you be cool if, you made me leader again and we can..." And so we're kind of like not rebuilding, but we're just trying to get more active leadership so that the clan feels more exciting because, we've got some clans in the family that are full and then others that are sitting at like 38 or 39 members that arguably could be full. And so working a little bit on some of those, but just I'm enjoying it. I love the team. We've got some really great personalities, some fun personalities. We're not as chatty as some of the. It's part of the reason why you guys, will see me hanging out sometimes in the CFF server because a lot of fun people and nice people, and but they're ultimately a bunch of good guys and gals. So it's things are going well.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about Town Hall 16. We wanted to get your thoughts on it and a little bit about the Root Rider nerf.
Speaking just for myself, if I was not at all worried about the community, which I love the community and I would like to use my influence, whatever that may amount to, with Supercell to push an agenda that is in favor of the community. And I try to make sure that as many voices that would like to be heard are being heard, if secondhand through myself. And I know other creators are constantly pushing for things that are advantageous and beneficial to the community. But if it was just me, just playing by myself, I don't know that I've been happier about the game, maybe ever. I really, really like Town Hall. I love the hero equipment. And because, I've got problems and I have bases at every town hall, I'm tinkering with stuff at all these different town halls with all the different types of equipment and strategies. And there's just an absolute mountain of fun that I'm having with the game right now. And I know, human nature, people like to complain about stuff. So some people are frustrated about things. And, you've got people on both sides of many debates right now. But I'm loving where the game is at right now. I like the equipment. I like the new defenses at Town Hall 16. I like the level of approachability they increased at the lower town halls, like with Town Hall 14 and 15, the poison bomb lasting for less time, some of the balancing on some of the defenses. Like I'm having an absolute blast. I really am. I'm so excited about the game right now.
I have to agree with you. Town Hall 15, I was in a pretty dark place mentally with regards to the game. But when Town Hall 16 dropped, it really just reinvigorated my love for this game, because it is a game, and it made me remember why I've played it all this many years. So I love Town Hall 16.
I honestly, I do not have any complaints. I know people have expressed some frustration over the ore and the economy, and they've expressed frustration over it's too easy, and other people feel like it's just right, don't nerf anything. Like, people have opinions about things, but like, just me personally, if I was not offering thoughts about anybody else, I feel like it's a fun time to be making content because there's so many cool new things to look at. It's a fun time to be playing the game. The chat UI changes weren't exactly like the coolest and most game-breaking thing, but I feel like it's a portent of things to come that could potentially be improving some of the in-game communication, and I'm really, really happy about it. And anytime I hear people complaining about it, I think, hey, look, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but for the most part, I happen to disagree with people that are unhappy about it.
So we touched briefly on the Root Rider. Do you think that they were right to nerf the Root Rider, or should they have left it alone?
I mean, I know that everybody is. I've seen people that they'll say like, I refuse to use Root Riders because it's too easy. And I've seen other people that are like, I, for the first time in a long time, feel like I do not suck at this game. And that feels really good. And I can completely respect that. I do think that in hindsight, if Supercell were to go back and relaunch the Root Rider, I honestly feel like they probably would have relaunched it even at a lower ability level than it's at today, even post nerf, because one of the things that Supercell has always stated that they would like to have in the game is some kind of relevance for their troops and relevance for the defenses. The mortar got buffs over time because they felt like it wasn't a relevant enough troop. A defensive structure. Various times the Valkyrie has gotten buffed, or some lesser used troops have gotten buffs, and for the most part, almost every single troop, even at Town Hall 16, plays its own role in the game to a degree that I think is pretty useful. However, because Root Riders are so much less complicated to use, and they are very powerful and very effective, and people have like glommed onto using them, it's something that I think Supercell is probably a little bit disappointed about, the lack of diversity within the game. Because part of what I think makes the game so beautiful and so exciting is you've got base layouts from island bases and rings to anti-2-star, anti-3-star. It's a corner town hall with the diamond shaped base. It's a box base, and all the variability in the game all the different types of super troops. Like, it's fun to see. That's one of the things I said I'm enjoying about the good guys right now. Like, my favorite attack I've seen in a while, Duck, one of the leaders in the good guys, it's this giant arrow attack where he's using like 9 or 10 lightning spells, or no, 12 lightning spells and it's 12 lightning spells, 2 earthquakes, and the giant arrow to just start wrecking a ton of the base before going in with a Hydra army.
Mhm.
And it's so cool. And I just love seeing people come up with really creative and ingenious ideas. And that's one thing that the Root Riders could potentially be stifling, is some of that additional creativity and excitement. My preference would have been, instead of nerfing the Root Riders to get them back on par with everything else, I would have rather seen maybe we buff all the other troops a little bit to put them on par with Root Riders, instead of taking this thing that people are so excited about and reducing the power of it, because that leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And
Yeah.
I think the same thing would happen. Like, I've heard people, like, they put this first nerf out there, and a lot of people are like, I don't even really feel like I felt it. And I've heard some other content creators say the same thing, like, I don't even really notice that there's been a difference, which, then makes people nervous, like they're going to do it again, until they get to the right spot. I tried sharing a couple of army compositions with some clanmates, like Duck's attack doesn't use any Root Riders at all. It's not using the Overgrowth spell. It's using lightning bolts and earthquake spells and dragons and dragon riders. And it's just capitalizing on some cool nuances of the Archer Queen's giant arrow. And so there are a lot of things you can do without Root Riders. So the one thing I was looking forward to, trying to find, like a silver lining, seeing them nerf Root Riders, I was like, oh, it's cool. People will like branch out and try some other cool strategies. And, so on the one hand, while I want people to be happy and enjoy the game, I would also like there to be some variability. And, I do feel bad sometimes. I see one of my clanmates, Seaman, he's at it was like 103rd in the world, a couple of days ago. And like every day he's losing 311, 312, 320 trophies on defense. And almost everything is Root Riders. And it's like, a little bit of variability would be kind of cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen a fair number of different types of attacks starting to creep in. Like, there's one person I know in War, he does not use Root Riders at all. He does old school Queen Charge Mass Minor with regular wall breakers. And that's what he uses. And most of the time he'll triple with it.
Queen Charges their Queen Charges are really cool. They're like, Seaman actually uses a Queen Charge hybrid army, and he has been really enjoying it. But one of his concerns, because he plays more competitive wars than the rest of us do, he is a little bit concerned because while it is a highly consistent attack for a very skilled player, it's on the slightly slower end of the spectrum. And in more competitive wars, he's like, oh, that represents a liability, because even though I 3-star, if I'm 3-starring in 2 minutes and 12 seconds, that's too slow. And it's like,
it's almost twice as long as Stars is taking these days.
Which is weird, right? It's a weird thing to think about. So, but I do like to see the variability, and mass minors. Like, I don't know, that's cool. I love seeing stuff like that, because skilled attackers, or even people that just have this massive level of comfort with their favorite troops and their favorite army compositions, they can do really cool and amazing things. And then we're like, I can do that too. And then we're like, apparently not. I don't have as much familiarity with that.
You don't want to see me do that. Like, I do remember when minors first came out, they were extremely overpowered, and eventually Supercell did nerf them as well. So they do have a habit of, it seems, releasing a really cool troop and then kind of wait a minute, we need to reduce their OP power a little bit.
I will say one thing though, I think about when Bowlers came out. I don't know if you remember this. When Bowlers came out, do you remember what their troop housing capacity was? It was 8. It was not 6. It was 8 when they first came out.
That's
and
right,
I remember talking to my wife. I was like, they're kind of cool, but they're basically because they can hit 2 buildings, it's like similar DPS to a wizard, but enough hit points to be 2 wizards worth of hit points, and kind of enough DPS to be 2 wizards worth of DPS because of the bounce. But that means I should really probably just be using wizards for the most part, because a bowler can survive a giant bomb and a wizard can't at certain levels. But then they eventually took it from 8 housing space down to 6. And so I will say that just emphasizes one of the challenges with releasing troops, is they want to release stuff that's cool and exciting, and they're more likely to err on the side of making it a little too cool and a little too exciting. as opposed to having it come out and everybody's like, that's terrible troop. Nobody wants to use that, because nobody was using bowlers at the time, or they were trying, but you just didn't have enough of them on the map.
Definitely. So we talked a little bit about the professional players. What can Supercell do? And I know there was a little bit of back and forth on Twitter, and Ferry mentioned in one of his tweets that they were looking at ways to, try and satisfy both sides of the spectrum. But what can they do about the divide between the pro players and the casual players?
I have absolutely no pity for the pro players. To me, it's like, it is the quintessential first world problems, right? Like, Seaman is amazing. If he ever decides to go on to bigger and better things and he winds up playing with other players, I will miss him terribly. But it's like, I'm doing pretty well, right? Clan War League, I did pretty well. I think I ended up at 11 out of 14 triples for the week. I was feeling good about that between all of my attacks. Might have been 12, either 11 or 12. And I was feeling good. And, he finished, I'm pretty sure he finished at 21 stars. And it's like a very, like, you can just see him yawning in front of his phone, like, easy money, no problem. And it's like, yeah, I feel really bad for you that your problem is that you need a faster attack, because finishing in 2 minutes and 20 seconds isn't good enough. It's like, the game needs an active player base to survive. And while pro players are cool and they're exciting and I'm happy for them, they represent like the tiniest drop in the bucket of revenue for Supercell. So, and to be honest, I didn't even know esports existed. Like, I always think about I always see you type or write or say SCCWL. And the first few times I heard you say that, I was like, I wonder what that is. Because, and it's to me, it's CWL. But I think what I have come to understand is that used to be an acronym for something that wasn't Clan War League. It was something else.
It was the original community-run Clan War Leagues. The community built so many different leagues. There was like CWL, MLCW, NDL, numerous other ones. And Supercell was a supporter of CWL for a while. And then I guess they decided to take that sort of idea and build it towards, because they've always wanted to branch into esports. So I guess they sort of saw this format and thought it might be something they could build on for SCCWL.
So for those of you, it's the Supercell version of Clan War League versus whatever the previous incarnation was. And for me, it's like, why don't they throw that? Like, why not just call it SCCOC? Right? It's like, I know it's Supercell Clash of Clans. Like, but
it's just the people who were involved in the community leagues that still, call the different two different names.
And so for me, Clan War League and like even like the competitive side of the game, that was not something, I didn't know that esports existed for Clash of Clans for the longest time. Mm-hmm. And I was spending a lot of money on the game, and my clan was growing, and we were meeting a lot of fun people in global way back in the day. Check to meet new clan mates, and we could interview them before they started with us. We found out they were a 9-year-old, but it was something that I never really knew existed. And even as I've come to know it, even with my immersion in the creator program, people like, you could stream and have access to all these cool high profile wars. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna record Duck's really cool giant arrow attack and put that on TikTok because that's how my content creation goes. And the truth is, my opinion, no disrespect to the pro players, to the competitive community, if the entire competitive scene collapsed, I think the game would still be fine. So my perspective on the pro players can go cry by themselves in the corner is somewhat driven by the fact that I care about the game at large and the community and the average player. And the average player is more interested in making sure that the game is not the punishing, sad, dismal feeling that we had. And I'm telling you, in May of last year, I was not making very many attacks on a monthly basis. I was playing much more heavily on my lower town halls because Town Hall 15 could absolutely kiss my butt. And it was like, I had a couple of times I was like, I felt like I'm getting okay with some of the Hydra attacks, and then I felt like terrible about it again. And it wasn't until the mid Town Hall update when they released the Super Hog Rider that I actually felt like I had some viable options that made me feel less than incompetent. Like, I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling great. I was feeling like I was not a complete schlub. And that's a bad place to feel. And I know so many people in the good guys, like, I think about the roster that we had that got us to Champ 1 in late 22. And when I look at where we were by June, we only had 5 or 6 of those players that were still in the clan because everybody else was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. It's like
Yeah.
we're winning matches in Clan War League at in Champ 2 or in Champ 3 with 31 stars, 32 stars. And that was like, 2 people got a triple and we were like, yeah, we crushed these guys. It's like 59% 2-star. I'm a genius. I didn't get a 1-star. Like, I managed to salvage the team, and that was a bad place to be. So, and I know that was a great place for pros to really separate themselves and create that gap. My first experience with this was when Super Dragons came out, and pros were like angry because everyday players were suddenly getting perfect wars or 14-star wars using a fairly non-complex attack with a little bit of funneling and then some Super Dragons. And they were like, those need to get nerfed. And we ended up nerfing them, and then nobody was using Super Dragons. So it's like, I want the casual players to feel good. I want, like, when I hear people talking about how much fun they had in a war, yes, it sucks sometimes when you're like, you're in a 30-person war, you got 89 stars, and you lose because they got a perfect war. It's like, yeah, that hurt. But, the sting of the loss, I think in a lot of times, it's like, it's easily overcome by we all felt good. We were doing something. We were being productive. We were getting 3 stars. We're cheering each other on. We're trying to clean up that last base versus having a 30-person war where we managed to win because we got 63 or 64 stars. And it's like, that wasn't that exciting. Like, nobody felt good about it. It's like we won, but like we all still feel like we lost because we all want to get 3 stars, and 2 stars doesn't feel like a win. And so I know that we want to do something for the pro players. I feel like if we were going to implement something, it would have to be something where we take like in the same way right now when you declare a friendly war, you can set parameters for 1 attack or 2 attacks. Mm-hmm. Something in there that does not require a labor-intensive set of balancing for a pro mode on Supercell's behalf, but something that could be, I'm going to call it like a slider button that's like maybe there's an offensive slider button and a defensive slider button. And the offensive slider button says, troops take some percentage from 0 to 100, which of course would be dumb because then none of them deal any damage. But like it's a percentage reduction in their damage output. And it's just applicable to the troops, right? So you can reduce the damage output for the troops, and it's unilateral across the board, and it's all percentage terms. Or there's a slider for the number of hit points that the defenses have, or a slider for the amount of damage that the defenses are dealing. So that and then maybe what becomes, right now people might say, oh, seems like a 5% or a 10% delta is the right balance to make it hard enough that the pros can really separate themselves and the casual players cannot care about it, because that's really what the casual players want. They want to be able to not care about whatever the pros are doing. And I think something like that would be, I will say, easier to implement in a sense that they don't have to go, okay, well, we're going to do this to balance root riders, but we're going to do something different to balance the super barbs. We're going to do this to balance super archers. For the pro community to want that level of meticulous management of troop strength and defense hit points and all that, I think it's an unreasonable ask. But if you did something where you could just like unilaterally give every single building on the map 15% more hit points, then it'll mess up your lightning calculations, and you got to figure out, oh, well, in pro mode I need an 8th lightning spell, and they would eventually figure that stuff out. But that's honestly the only concession I would like to see Supercell make, because it's going to be the easiest, lowest effort thing for them that doesn't wind up taking away development time that could go to stuff that benefits the overwhelming majority of players in the community.
Yeah, actually, I really like that idea.
Yeah, and so with all these changes they've been going through, talk about the root riders. We're getting, town halls once every 12 months now. But I think one of the things that we're seeing with that, with it's a big, big change in the cadence and how they're doing things and the amount of options and events they're putting into the game. Suddenly, certain things aren't working, are they, Trample?
Some stuff, yeah.
Does it seem like I don't remember there being a buggier time in game than right now. Do you?
I don't. I think that this is just being. I'm not even divulging anything that I have learned behind the wall of a non-disclosure agreement. None of us were expecting Town Hall 16 to come out in December, but I heard back in June of last year, probably, I don't know, maybe they shouldn't have told. I didn't tell anybody, so it was okay that they told me, but I was part of a small conversation in a group that ended up saying, well, Town Hall 16 is actually going to come in December. And I went, huh? December of this year? And I was like, wow, okay. On one hand, cool, sounds exciting. Maybe it'll be easier than Town Hall 15 because I hate Town Hall 15. But yeah, I was surprised. And when Town Hall 16 came out, again, not revealing anything that you wouldn't be able to figure out with a little bit of logic, we had 2 cool new pieces of common equipment for the Barbarian King and 2 cool new pieces of equipment for the Queen and 2 cool new pieces for the Warden and nothing for the Royal Champion that ended up coming out a few months later. And the casual observer might recognize that and go, does it feel like they released Town Hall 16 before it was done? And you could probably speculate that it came earlier than maybe it needed to. And I think then we get some further evidence with, the Barbarian King Gauntlet glitch and seeing what was going on there. And there's a bug with the haste vial where the way that the base damage for the Royal Champion doesn't couple appropriately with the equipment once it's activated, and fixing it actually is going to make the Royal Champion stronger, and the haste vial is already very powerful. So seeing some of these types of glitches and these bugs, it feels to the community like things came out earlier than they should have come out. And that's the kind of thing that makes us feel like, oh, maybe some of these things are being rushed. And then I know also, like they're saying, Ferry came out and said, oh, the plan is annual new town hall increases, which doesn't worry me unless it's going to be where we're sitting in a position where, bugs continue to come because maybe we're not spending enough time testing things out before we wind up releasing them.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we're seeing, I think, like you're saying, it's a direct result of speeding up their cadence in releasing town halls. And they're going to do it every 12 months, or at least that's their stated approach by now, right? But to your point, to what what's the cost? I mean, they have grown their development team. As someone who works with software developers and who used to be a developer himself, you can throw 9 women at a pregnancy. It doesn't mean the baby's coming out in a month, right? So it's just not really the real way of the world. Sure, they can speed up. I mean, when you think about a 12-month release cycle, right? That's, it used to be roughly 18 months, right? At least from, maybe 12 onward, we kind of got used to an 18-month cycle. And now that they got the World Championship, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for them to throw a new town hall at people in April or May. So, I understand what they're trying to do. They have scaled up to try and do that, but I think we're just seeing a lot of the growing pains.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that if I was a solo player with one account, I would love a town hall every year. I think I really would, because I think about the Town Hall 15 journey. So it came out in October of 2022. And before we were all done. I'd say, I'm using this loosely here, most of the people that I clash with were done with Town Hall 15 content by February. And then we were like, I wonder when the next update's going to come. And it's like, here's a new clan capital district, or here's a new builder base thing. And we were like, can we have more town hall content for the main base? And then, we got the mid town hall upgrade stuff at Town Hall 15 in the summertime. And that felt good. And I was very happy about that. But then, 5 days later, we were done with that. And so on some level, having additional stuff come out more regularly is a cool thing. As somebody who might have far too many bases, I don't know that I would, like with Town Hall 17 coming out this year, I don't know that I would necessarily make 2024 the year that I upgrade all of my town halls one more time for whatever stupid reason. I've invested time and energy into these things, so it's like I like having 2 town halls at each level. And if somebody asks me why, I'm going to be like, I don't know, because I've always done that, at least ever since I started making content. But I don't know, like when Town Hall 17 drops, I'm going to be happy if I have gotten all of my other town halls to complete the journey that they began to their new level when Town Hall 16 came out, or shortly before, so I could take advantage of the Hammer Jam. And I think maybe when 17 comes out, I might upgrade 2 of my 16s and call it a day and work on those and just kind of enjoy the rest of them and enjoy the hero equipment grind, and maybe make it a less aggressive development cycle for myself, and then maybe go back to that at Town Hall 18 and like inundate myself with responsibilities. But if I only had one Town Hall, there's a lot of players. You take like Ace, right? Like, so Town Hall comes out, and the next day he's like, "I'm done. Now what?" It's like,
I mean, he's not a one town hall person anymore. He's got a 15 coming up that he's working on, and a couple of other little accounts that he's got stashed away.
it's like there's some people I can't, they can't wait to get things done. And like, Congressman Coolrick, one of my clanmates, he did the same thing. He like spent all of Town Hall 15 stocking up on magic items and stuff, and then he like,
Mhm.
this like feeding frenzy the day 16 came out. He's like, I'm done. I was like, okay. It's like I feel like there's so much joy to be had of actually feeling like, oh, I got enough gold to start another upgrade. Like there's some fun to come along with that. It's exciting to also be maxed out, but
Mhm.
I think with the way that the game is structured right now, a new town hall each year wouldn't necessarily stress me out or bother me unless there are continued bugs or glitches, or if it feels rushed for, look, they're a company, I get it, financial obligations, and that's probably why Town Hall 16 came out sooner than it did. I don't know what their fiscal year ends. Their fiscal year probably ended in December, and they probably thought, hey, we're going to get a whole bunch more revenue by dropping the new town hall. I can tell you from a creator perspective, the creator revenue I got in October of 2022 was actually a lot higher than the creator revenue that I got in December of 23 when Town Hall 16 came out. So I don't know that it had the same pop that they were maybe expecting, but it definitely felt like it was a little too soon. Which I remember I heard Ferry was interviewing with the Reddit Talks Clash guys not that long ago, and he had made a comment about not necessarily having what he said, like it's the year of the main village or something, which makes
Mhm.
me think all the extra resources they have are going to be focused on main village content, which I hope indicates that we're going to wind up having fewer bugs in the future and fewer glitches, and a roadmap that will nicely have them wrapping up whatever's going to come with Town Hall 17 and any other cool updates in between that will all be seamless, as opposed to ones that we go, oh, are they going to have to fix that?
Yeah, I wonder if part of the problem was that, Darian had mentioned in previous interviews that a lot of what they were working with the existing levels of the town halls and the game was old infrastructure dating back to the beginning of the game, and they never had the resources to change any of it. And now all of a sudden they've got the people that they need to work on stuff. So that would lead to glitches and issues as they switch things over to maybe some newer software. I don't know, maybe new servers.
It's a good point. I know in the development world, there this notion of a kludge, where you're just like, it's like, Frankenstein's
Uh,
monster, where you're like, oh, I'm gonna, what? No, we can make this thing work. We're just gonna attach a ball turret gun to its forehead, and it's like it
mhm.
wasn't designed to have that happen. And I
Mhm.
think about even when they talked about the difficulty, because right after I got into the creator program, I was pushing very heavily for like, hey, can we do like friendly wars separate from the regular clan wars, because I would love to do more of these like special event type of things, but I can't because a lot of people are in a regular war and it's hard to coordinate schedules. And now that we're able to do that, I'm definitely going to get back to a schedule of doing some of these fun friendly wars, because prior to that, not only am I trying to compete with the schedules that people have for their normal clan wars, but now I'm asking them to forego a resource in the form of ore to take part in something that's just like for fun. And a lot of people like they do it because it's fun and it's a community thing. But a lot of them, we join the clans, we declare the war, we all go back to our home clans, and then maybe somebody said, "Oh, I'm going to stream at 5 o'clock," so a couple more people are on attacking at 5. But a lot of us, we just pile in there and like, what was the stupid rule for this thing? Oh, that's right, I can only use these spells, and it's fun. But it's like, I'm not going to ask it, because people have been asking me like, when are you going to start doing special events again? I'm like, whenever I'm not going to have to tell people that they pay a tax to be able to participate.
Mhm.
Because if you have to forego an entire war worth of ore, because even if you lose the war, you're still getting, 3/7 of that potential ore amount. I'm not going to ask people to forego that. But when I started asking about that, the developer that I have the best relationship said, here's the problem. Clan War League was built as its own complete separate module. That's why you can do Clan War and Clan War League at the same time. Friendly Wars, it's all part of the same module that is Clan War. We actually have to do a lot of work to create a new infrastructure to allow that to happen. So it's exactly what you're talking about, Kat. Like they have stuff where, it's like I don't know if you guys ever heard the term, like you build a church for Easter Sunday. And when they started Clash of Clans, they're like, we don't know how many people are going to come. So they've got this like, small oh, I don't know, like Protestant just came over on the Mayflower church that fits 40 people, and because that's all we're worried about. And then some point later, everybody has a bunch of kids, and we need to find room to fit, 3,700 people in this church. And I think along the same lines, they had no idea where they were going to go with it.
Just raise some atheists. Really, it kind of takes the. So, I one of the things that feels like it's become more obvious, though, is sure we have more events now, and it's kind of neat. It's a good way to get the epic equipment and all that. But there could be an argument that they're just dipping their hands right back into our wallets, every other month for these events, and we're getting equipment, we're getting the epic equipment, the events, all the special ice cubes was this month, right? Um, what do you think of do you get a feeling? Is there anyone around who's like, you know, starting to cost a little bit more to kind of keep up with the Joneses in this game? What do you think, Trample?
I feel like, so I have my own lines of communication with some of the people that I'm much more friendly with and I have better relationships with on the Clash team. And I'm continuing to focus on what I feel like is what I can actually bring as a business professional to the conversation. And it is churn, and it is wallet, and it is customer lifetime value. Because I work in the casino industry, and I've been 10 years in the database marketing side of the umbrella, and it's a big company with a lot of guests that come in, and we, like any business, we want to reduce the amount of churn in our business. We want to increase the length of our customer life cycle so that we have a better chance to make more money. And I think about the life cycle of a guest in Clash of Clans. And a lot of people start dropping out around Town Hall 9, Town Hall 11, Town Hall 12. And it's because 30 hero upgrades for the Archer Queen at Town Hall 9, a boatload of hero upgrades at Town Hall 11. Town Hall 12, you're getting 15 for the King, 15 for the Queen, 20 for the Warden. And I think people start to feel that kind of pressure and that stress that's associated with it. And I think that creates some churn. One of the things about like the wallet spend, I realize people have discretionary and disposable income, but a lot of people kind of have like a mental benchmark for what they feel comfortable spending in the game. And this is even talking to people over the years, and even from some other podcasts, hearing people talk about what they've spent on. And in more recent times, hearing people say things like, I'm not buying cosmetics anymore because I'm spending on my gold pass and I'm spending on an event pass now. And every now and then I buy some gems because I'm donating to my clanmates. Yeah, I haven't bought any of the last X number of sceneries. I didn't buy any of the skins, where these are people who used to buy the skins. And in a lot of ways, I know it creates additional revenue opportunities for Supercell, which is something that you could argue is like a good thing. And it's also potentially a great thing for the player base, because there's an easy argument to say, well, if you don't want the extra stuff, don't buy it. And that's a fair argument when the extra stuff is books of building and books of heroes and gem packs and runes of dark elixir. These are things that just save you time in the game and make you progress a little bit more quickly. So telling somebody, oh, I'm not really worried about bypassing all the waiting time. Like, I actually, I don't want to max my Town Hall 16 in April. I wouldn't mind if it lasted me a little bit longer. So I'm not going to buy any of those things. But when we do wind up in a position where it's like, yeah, look, if you want to be able to use the cool new toys that we got you, like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out the rate at which we gain shiny ore versus glowy ore. You have an excess of shiny ore. Oh no, what am I going to do with all this shiny ore? Buy the event pass, because that's where you're going to get more glowy ore that, oddly enough, balances out perfectly with very active players who have an excess of shiny ore. So it's like, oh, cool, revenue generating business model. But at the same time, I've been hearing so many people in the community talk about how they feel like they're being held hostage and they're being like forced to spend more money. And I completely sympathize with them, and I understand where they're coming from. And at the same time that I'm secretly buying a bunch of these things for myself because I really like the extra glowy ore, because I'm not as active and all the time or whatever. But it is something that I'm concerned about, because the other main game that I play when I have time is Magic the Gathering, and I play on their arena platform in addition to paper Magic. I still buy cards even though I hardly ever play with other humans. And I hear a lot of Magic players say the same thing about feeling like too many products come out, too much stuff gets released, and in order for them to be able to continue playing, and this is this is a game that the format literally shifts, right? We're saying, like, you can't even use your gauntlet anymore. You can only use whatever the cool new epic equipment is for the Barbarian King. So when people feel like they have to continue spending at an alarming rate, it makes them actually churn and burn out and not play anymore, which can ultimately cost Supercell more money in the long term. Like, I'd rather have somebody play for 10 years buying a $7 gold pass. I know it's like $50 in Canada, but buy a $7 gold pass every month for 10 years, then
Yeah.
get them to, have buyer's remorse over spending $200 on ore and event passes in the course of a 6-month period. I would rather stretch some of that stuff out. And so I am a little bit nervous about the additional spending opportunities creating wallet fatigue for people, because it's a real thing. People start saying things like, I spent $140 this month on Clash of Clans and I have 2 bases. And it's like that moment of realization of like, I spent way too much on this. And we can try to rationalize it. Well, I mean, if I was buying Starbucks and it's $5 a day, that's $150 a month. And it's like, yeah, I know, but it is a little different. Like, because you could theoretically also enjoy Clash of Clans without spending all that money. Or can you? Because I don't have the cool new equipment that gives me access to the best new army composition to keep us relevant. So it's a stressful thing, and I am concerned about it.
Yeah, it's there's so much going on there, and there's a lot of opportunities to spend. And you know what? Something you said really, really resonated with me. And I'm going to pass it over to Kat real quick, but you hit something that I was talking to Kat about a little while before this started. I love the space theme stuff. I love the skins, and I love the scenery this month, but I'm not getting it because just like you said, you laid it out real well. I'm like, I bought two accounts worth of event passes, 2 accounts worth of gold passes. I spent an extra what, maybe 30, 25, 30 American on the scenery and skins. I think I'm sitting it out. That's exactly what happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for me too. I mean, you know how I feel about the skins and sceneries. Like, I usually buy almost all of them, but I did not buy, other than the one that came with the gold pass. Did not,
Hmm.
because I bought the event pass on my main, but I only bought the event pass on one account. The rest of mine, I managed to get the warden ability on all my accounts. It wasn't easy, but
When
we
Ace gets
sleep.
around to listening to this, he's just gonna laugh.
He's gonna laugh at me. But it kind of makes me think, Trample, a little bit. Do you think the events are coming out just a little bit too often? You know,
I will say objectively, I
Mhm.
feel like if they did the Super Dragon event the way that they did it without a piece of epic equipment,
Mhm.
I actually don't mind that in the long term, and I'll elaborate on that. I realize that wallet fatigue is a thing for people who don't necessarily, and I am actively encouraging people to just relax and enjoy the ride. Because in the same way that I don't want to max out my Town Hall 16 today, I want there to be something that I'm still playing toward and building toward, because that base growth, the evolution, the progress, like, that's something that feels rewarding, right? We get those little dopamine hits every time a builder frees up. We're like, yes, all right, I'm down to traps. And then when our traps finish up, we're like, great, now what? Now I look at my gold pass storage thing building with loathing, because, like, at the end of the month I'm going to be sitting on 490,000 dark elixir for weeks because I have nothing to do with it, unless I'm dumping it into super troops because I don't like looking at that thing stay over 500,000. But I think that if they weren't doing a piece of epic equipment and they had just an event pass to give people an opportunity to kind of catch back up on the glowy ore, I don't actually think that would be a bad thing. Because realistically, for people who don't want to have to spend extra money and don't want to feel like they need to spend extra money, by the time you get 2 solid pieces of equipment for each hero, honestly, you're in good shape. And I feel like with all the testing and tinkering that I've done, they're all balanced pretty well. And I get ridiculed all the time for telling people that I use the Barbarian Puppet and the Vamp Stash on my Barbarian King. That army composition works so well. Half the time, my King is one of the first troops I deploy, and he survives nearly every attack. I had one of my bases, I was 6 out of 7 in Clan War League in Champ 1, and my Barbarian King survived like 5 of those attacks all the way through to the very end. I don't need a Giant Gauntlet and a Rage Vial. They are super cool, and I am finding that some of the mass Root Rider Valk stuff, my Vamp Stash Barb Puppet is not quite as good because he doesn't get into the core and wreck stuff in the way that you kind of want him to. So I
Mhm.
do see that there are optimal, maybe some slightly more optimal compositions that you wind up using, but I say, okay, well, fine. I'm going to start tinkering a little bit with upgrading one of these other pieces of equipment. But I'm not in a bad place right now. And I feel like I'm telling people, just relax, like, pace yourself. But my argument of relax, pace yourself doesn't hold any water if we were to get a piece of new equipment every single month. Because at the rate that we're going, without paying for it, we're not really getting enough stuff to upgrade more than really like one piece of equipment a month. Like really for like new to
Right.
max. And that's probably excluding the Epic equipment that kind of feels like it wants the event pass, because at levels 21 and 24 and 27, it's an extra 600 glowy ore plus whatever the starry ore comes out to. I don't know because I haven't spent any. Most of my accounts have like 700 starry ore at this point because I haven't upgraded any of my Epic equipment. But I think an event like what they did with the Super Dragons, I actually felt like this one was, for me, the way I play, it was pretty easy for me to do because I just like opened it up, I spammed some troops, I closed the app. For people that don't enjoy playing the game like that, even though the point value needed was lower, it was a more difficult thing to accomplish because with some of the previous ones, like you snipe some defenses or you're sniping a Grand Warden or you send some sneaky goblins to pick off a clan castle, people could grind some of those out very quickly. Grinding for stars is very hard because you can't just take a partial army and quickly 2-star a base. In the same way that you could take a couple hog riders, some defenses, fling a royal champion shield at a couple of defenses, and presto, you got whatever that resource was.
Mhm.
So I like the idea of them having stuff where, some, free super troops is cool, free or free troop bonuses and training and free all of that stuff on the free pass for the event thing. I actually like having that there, and I don't feel obligated to play if there is no piece of Epic equipment that's attached to it. Like during the Lava Loon in the Mashup Madness, I didn't feel obligated to play unless I really wanted to get one of the skin, the Ghost Queen skin. Which some of my accounts I was like, yeah, I'm not grinding, and so I didn't feel obligated, so I didn't do them. But with the ones with the Epic equipment, I'm like, yeah, I got 28 bases to do, honey. We can't go out to dinner tonight. I never said that. I just stayed up. I stayed up late.
I did really like
Certainly.
the way they did this event. I liked that it was an ability, and then you could spend whatever extra resources you had on or books or whatever. I liked that they didn't overload you with useless obstacles and a skin plus an epic ability. I think that was really good. I agree. I would like to see events maybe that just you just can invest in ore and stuff like that, not even have an ability.
I feel like if I were, it's very easy for us to play the proverbial Monday morning quarterback, hindsight 2020, rearview mirror, whatever. If Town Hall 16 launched, I would have probably rather seen Town Hall 16 launch a little bit later, where the Royal Champion did come with her 2 pieces of common equipment, and it wasn't like its own new update, because it would have felt complete. And it wouldn't have bothered me to go like, hey, you're already working on all of these other pieces of equipment. So sure, drop a piece of Epic equipment in there to get us really excited about it. Then drop another one 2 months later. That didn't feel bad. Drop me another one 2 more months later. I didn't like the idea of, even though I know what they're trying to do, they're trying to get one piece of Epic equipment out there for each of the heroes. But I don't love February, March, April, back to back to back of Epic equipment. And Ferry had said on his interview with the Reddit Talks Clash guys, oh yeah, the next 2 events are going to have equipment. And so we were like, oh, that's so, and I think people heard that and felt overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of creators, I will say to their credit, I actually got into a couple of arguments with people on Reddit today. They were like, creators never make videos about, how bad things suck with the game right now. And I said, we don't need to. Like, we literally have, we can send direct messages to the people who are working on this stuff, giving them our feedback. And we don't have to go shout into the ether. I said, it's the same thing as if my wife was mad at me and she tells her sister. That's not going to help us. Only if her sister happens to tell me that she's complaining about me. She could just tell me, we'll sort things out. The other thing about that is people don't check out Clash of Clans content to hear people rant about stupid stuff. They check out to see cool new attacks and fun, exciting things and how the game works and what I should be doing next and what my upgrade paths are.
Wait,
So
you're saying ranting about stupid stuff doesn't get an audience?
It does.
Well,
but
it's going to be the shortest return to this podcast you've ever seen, Kat.
I just don't think. I think that what I am very proud of the creator community to which I belong. Everybody, and I feel so bad for some of the Clash team. We've been kind of, relentless in saying, hey, listen, these are very serious concerns. We're like linking stuff that people are posting on Reddit, YouTube comments, the sentiment that we're hearing from people. Everybody has been very vocal. And I can't say anything directly just yet, but I think that people will see that those voices are being heard. And the Clash team is recognizing that there are concerns out there in the community around all this event stuff. What I wind up saying to the community is, let's just be patient while they try to figure this out. It's brand new, right? It's like,
Right.
it's the first time I drove a car. Like, I'm trying to figure it out. I want whoever's teaching me to drive to be patient with me as I figure out the best way for me to operate this vehicle. And it is a new, very new thing that they have to be careful. They don't want to overload people with ore and then realize that they did too much and then dial it back, because then they're bad guys for dialing it back. But if they don't overload us up front, then we're like, they're stingy and it's money grabbing. And, they made comments before about hero books. Like, hey, we'd love to get rid of hero books as a primary source of revenue. We just don't know how to do that yet. They understand that that's a hurdle for players. And that's probably a big piece of churn, is that people feel like, I got to upgrade this thing. I posted something on Reddit that was like showing to like 25 levels. I mentioned it on my podcast, like 25 levels of hero upgrade for the queen gets her like 12% more damage per second versus one upgrade for the giant from level 10 to 11. That's a daunting thing for people to face. And so not being able to use heroes in war while we're trying to be in war so that we can get ore, they recognize that it's a problem and they're trying to solve it. And I feel like we just, as a community, need to be patient as they figure it out, because upsetting the community and driving us all away means no revenue. So there's a delicate balance.
Well, and I think what's really nice and I think positive that people can take out of this is, yes, the community, the players, from the pros to the casual players, are in an uproar about the game, but it just shows how much that people really do care about the game. Because if nobody cared, then everybody would just say, okay, whatever, and continue playing, and they would just gradually fade away from the game. But it just speaks volumes, I think, that the community in general cares about this game and wants to see it succeed and continue.
Totally agree. I feel like you just hit that perfectly on the head. It's we love the game, we care about the game. We all want it to land somewhere good.
Yeah. And Supercell has done a lot to refocus the game on offense. And I've noticed in a few wars that we seem to be running into, I don't want to call them engineered bases quite yet, but they're somewhat rushed in terms of defense. But offensively, they seem to be a little bit more max than normal. Do you think we're going to see a return to some form of engineering or rushing?
I will say that I don't. I don't mean to oversimplify this, but when I think about, I've got a town hall, let's pretend it's a 2-person war. I've got a town hall 15 and a town hall 16. And I somehow get matched against a 16 and a rushed 16. They could potentially have 2 shots at my 16. But if we say, think of it as like in Clan War League, for example, you only get 1 attack. One of them has to attack my 15. And so, yeah, sure, they're going to be able to 3-star my 15. But that also means that my 15 is going to be able to really curb stomp their rushed Town Hall 16. And the part where I think people who engineer get the biggest benefit, and I think about this from back earlier days when I first started playing, the times that I felt like we got kind of hosed by the engineered accounts were when we had, let's say, in a Town Hall 10, because when I started playing, I'm upgrading, I'm doing my thing. I spent like 30 years at Town Hall 9 because walls cost 40 billion or whatever it used to cost. I'm working on my Town Hall 9. We'd get into some wars with a couple of Town Hall 10s and then some rushed Town Hall 10s, and our highest bases were all Town Hall 9s, and they could clean out our Town Hall 9s relatively easily, and we couldn't get their top couple of Town Hall 10s. If you are in a position where you've got Town Hall 16s on your side, the people being rushed and being able to use those stronger armies really aren't necessarily going to hurt you that badly, because their bases are going to be super simple to destroy. I think it really just comes from, you get smaller wars that are hard to balance, where somebody comes in with like a rushed 16, a decent 15, and then a bunch of Town Hall 10s. And then they get paired against somebody who just can't compete with the 15 or the 16 because of the war weighting. Those are really the only ones. But for clans that are, I think, pretty well developed, and you've got more than 15 or 20 people in a war, having 1 or 2 or even 12 engineered bases, I don't think it's going to wind up benefiting the engineers. And there's a pretty high opportunity cost to them doing that, because it's, you have a base that looks like garbage. And even though, I use my raid medals and I pop some hero potions, and I can 3-star this stuff, and it's like, well, that's cool, but I also just 3-starred your Town Hall 16 with a Town Hall 11. So like, I wouldn't be that proud. Like, your base isn't that cool. Yeah, the town hall is hard to destroy, but oh, look, a blimp with some sneaky goblins. There goes 80% of your offense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, real quick. So we're going to do some almost word association type questions here and then get to our top 5. All right. So, trample damage. Your favorite offensive troop in all 3 villages. Start with the main village, then the capital, and then the builder base. Ready, set, go.
Main village, super hog rider, and I feel so bad saying that because the hog rider is such a close second. I'm gonna go super hog rider. The clan capital, it would be the super miner because it's really fast to spam and close and get raid medals. Okay, I tell you what, I'll be more fair. I actually really, really enjoy Sparky. It's just not a fast attack because it can be great with a couple of graveyard spells and the haste spell, but it's not. It's a slower deployment because you have to be a little bit more meticulous with where you're putting the troops. I think Sparky's like a super cool troop, and every now and then, if I have a week where I'm playing a little slower, I'll throw in some Sparky attacks. But super minor because it's fast. And on the builder base, I would say the bomber because it enables me to do a lot of other really quick spammy attacks that can still get me 3 stars. And then I close it because I don't ever fight the second stage. So I'm going to say bomber because it gets my other troops access to the inside of the base. And it's really cool, the bouncing bomb. It's like a super bowler.
All right. So I think we might already have an answer for this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Your favorite super troop?
The Super Hog Rider by far. I love the Super Hog Rider. It's such a cool troop. If I were okay, so if I didn't pick that as my favorite regular troop, my favorite regular troop might even be the Golem. I love the Golem. It's really cool. But yeah, Super Hog Rider by far. It's such a cool design. I thought about how I would do a Super Hog Rider many times in the past, and when I saw the design for it, I was like, this is so much cooler than anything that I had ever thought of. And I was instantly hooked.
Favorite main village defense?
Oh, I think this probably the scatter shot. The scatter shot is such a cool defense. It's like it's really powerful, but I love that it has a weakness in the form of a blind spot where, 2 barbarians get inside that range and they could take it down. It's a really cool. I love the scatter shot. I think it's I hate going after it with my hog riders, but I'm always trying to like freeze it or heal into it or something. But I think the scatter shot is, to me, it's like still like the scariest defense.
And then this one is going to lead into our top 5, but your favorite place to do your war hits?
Oh man, literally anywhere that I am, as long as there's still enough time left to make my attack. But if I would say probably the 2 most common places would be either sitting on my bed with my iPad in front of me or sitting at my desk in my office. That's where I'll wind up making a lot of my attacks. Preferably, I'd say like with the first competitive war I did, I got home and I ran upstairs and I jumped on the bed and I put my iPad in front of me and I felt calm and cool and collected and I tore somebody's face to shreds with Super Hog Riders. So probably my bed.
Nice. And then it's time to get into our top 5. So your top 5 superstitions or habits you have for the game, and you can be like, are they superstitions for your war hits, legends hits, or any other superstitions in general regarding Clash? So Trample, let's hear your number 5.
Okay, I am going to say anytime I am prepping for a war attack, I have this thing that I wind up saying to myself out loud. Otherwise, I inevitably wind up goofing something up where I just say to myself, especially ever since pets came out and now that equipment is out, I just say to myself prior to hitting attack, double check your pets and equipment. Because biggest mistake I make sometimes jumping back and forth between a few of my armies is the life gem versus the healing tome on the Grand Warden makes a huge difference. Super Hog Riders, I'm going life gem. Most of my other armies, I'm using the healing tome. So I literally say to myself every time, check your pets, check your equipment, because I move them around a lot more than maybe some other people do.
Gotcha. My number 5, and this one is especially for my good pal Storm Rider. Ensuring if I'm doing a Blizzard Lalo or even a Super Archer Blimp to make sure I have enough jump spells in my composition. It's more of a habit than a superstition at this point. Kat?
My number 5
Did I
is
lose you guys?
my number 5 is to make sure my warden is set to ground because like so many times I've accidentally left it on air and
I'm not
or vice
hearing
versa.
anything.
From your Lalo hits, Kat?
From my really OP Lalo hits, yes.
Trample number 4.
I will say that I always wind up going in to make sure that I have. This is like, I make a lot of attacks where I just default my requests to 2 Yetis and a Super Hog Rider. And I don't know why, but I actually feel better about putting my clan castle together without asking for like a pair of barbarians or a pair of archers, because I know inevitably they're not going to lead to anything. They're going to get like popped by something in the core. So I almost prefer my siege machine to have those 2 vacant spots, because I don't know, it's like something that I do almost all my legend attacks. I don't want my clan mates to wind up having to donate those, and I spend raid medals on them a lot. So it's like most of my clan castles, if it's a pair of Yetis and a Super Hog Rider, I like to leave the other 2 spots open.
Interesting. Okay. Number 4 for me is making sure I'm sitting up. I know it sounds stupid, but there will be times where it's like, oh, I've got war hits to do, and I'll be laying in bed. And then next thing I know, I'm staring down the barrel of a 1-star or just generally something really embarrassing. And it's, I don't know. I am not, who's the guy on TT who always hits laying down?
Oh, that was Conan.
Yeah, that is not me. That is not me. Kat, you're number 4?
I cannot be on voice if I'm doing my war hits. I need complete silence.
So you weren't doing the war hits when I was peppering Trample with some some questions a
No.
moment ago? All right, Trample number 3.
I hate attacking on my iPhone for wars. I don't mind my multiplayer attacks. War attacks, to me, they have such higher stakes, and I attack so much better on my iPad than I do on my phone. And so I really always want to be on my iPad when I'm making a war attack.
Well, super. My number 3 is verbatim. It just says this bullet point in front of me just says iPad. So for the exact reasons you stated, iPad is definitely a must for any. Yeah, I'll do my Legends hits on my phone. I don't care. But when it comes to war hits and people who can watch replays on demand without me sharing them, yeah, that's going on the iPad. Kat?
My number 3
3.
is, yes, it's number 3. I have to be sitting either at a table or my desk. Yeah, I'm like you guys. I can't just be reclining on a couch doing word attacks. I'm not that talented.
All right, Trample number 2.
This is like without fail. If I'm making a Clan War League attack, or the few competitive wars I've participated in, I need to be somewhere that I will not be interrupted, because inevitably I make plenty of attacks in my office throughout the day. I'm a highly productive individual, but yes, I play Clash while I'm at work. If I have to make a Clan War League attack at work, I close my office door to make sure that nobody comes in to interrupt me. Regular wars, sometimes I'll just go ahead and start because I don't want to like make people feel like my game is more important than my job. But for Clan War League attacks, I close my door, and if I'm at home, I will tell my wife, hey, I'm making a Clan War League attack. And she's like, okay, honey, good luck. Because even if there are other people in the room, if there are other people around, just me saying that out loud means that at least for a moment, like if there's any objection, she'll say something like, oh, I was just about to ask for a hand with this, or I was about to suggest something else. I telegraph that so that I can have the time to focus on the attack.
Interesting. All right. Number 2 for me, and this really applied. I want to go back about a year before the Super Hogs came out. Finding a time where maybe not so much you're alone at home or alone at work, but make sure that little indicator in your clan says 1 of 50 online or something like that, right? The fewer people online, the better. So it used to be when the hit rates were a little lower, I'd be like, well, let's just march myself right into this trench again. So yeah, that used to be it. So Kat, number 2.
Number 2 for me is I don't have any music playing for war. I like to have music when I'm doing my legend hits, but when I'm doing my war hits, no music playing.
See, I imagine you listening to like, was it Ride of the Valkyries or something when you're attacking?
Nope.
All right, Trample, your number 1 superstition.
So I feel like anytime I'm making an attack that uses lightning spells to take something out, I have this process that I go through. And I, especially lately, because I've been doing a lot of zap attacks, prior to going in to make my war attack, I look at the base, and even though I already know that it's going to wind up hitting exactly what I want it to hit from the position that I'm dropping it, before I declare attack, I go in, I zoom in, and I count the tiles one more time on every single, it's like that L shape that the lightning will affect. I count to make sure everything's going to hit. I will then declare attack. And then while I've got that 30 seconds that I'm waiting to count down, I zoom in. This is also why I like my iPad so much more than my phone. I zoom in very closely and I recount them again in that 30 seconds to make sure that I'm going to hit it exactly where I want, because it's just like failing a super archer blimp, only I don't have the excuse of, well, yeah, they really trapped that town hall. The excuse is, I'm stupid. I don't know where to put my spells.
All right, so my number one has since been retired because it just hasn't been a problem for whatever reason. I used to use a Samsung tablet back in the day. I have an iPad now, but I used to wash my hands before I would attack. And the reason why was, for whatever reason, I felt like if my fingers were a little bit cold, stuff wouldn't drop. I don't know if that's an electronics thing, a Samsung versus iPad thing. I had no idea. So I just got into this habit of, all right, time to, I gotta wash my hands. And um, it wasn't like it magically cured my terribleness, but it felt like, well, I'm doing everything I can to prepare for success. And success being not being, not embarrassing myself.
It's funny. I have a similar thing, but for me, my hands get really dry, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with living in the desert. But I always like I'll try to make sure before war. I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it. Like I'll actually like rub my thumb across the pads of my fingers to make sure that it feels like some of the natural oil that our body produces is there. And if I can't feel that, it just feels dry. I'll put a small amount of lotion on. All over my hands just to make sure that I'm not like globbing it on there to where then the iPad can't feel me. But I do actually, I didn't even remember that. Now, that's something that I think I do just like subconsciously, because if my hands are really dry, it doesn't feel like it always makes the same contact. And I feel like I'm sometimes like going, why didn't that troop drop? Why didn't I trigger that? Why didn't it switch to the other troop?
Yeah, and kind of going hand in hand with that, Kat. Sorry, we're not filibustering you, but
That's okay. I'll just
I
say
used to have a post-it on my desk monitor that said zoom in, because I would have all, in addition to whether the fingers were cold, if I was zoomed all the way out when scouting the last 30 seconds or whatever, and if I didn't zoom in enough, your troops do not drop if you're zoomed out, or do not drop predictably if you're zoomed out too far, because you're trying to do things fast, and like you might swipe instead of drop or something like that, and it's just maddening. So I used to have a little post-it that says zoom in. All right, Kat, we can't prevent you from doing your number one, I guess.
you really want to hear my number one?
Yeah, we do.
My number one is I always turn up the volume on my game.
On the music?
No, the sound. I have the music turned off in game, but I want the sound. Like I want to be able to hear when the CC comes out and other stuff. So yeah, that's my number one.
We've had that, not so much an argument, but it's entertaining. Like the people really dig their heels in on that, and I play with the sound. So exact reasons you said. I need to hear the CC prompt, but there are some people who are like, God, who plays with sound? What a bunch of noobs. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm a noob then.
All right, guys, it's time for shout outs. Trample, do you have any shout outs?
I do. I would like to shout out the podcast community. I have a lot of interaction with a couple of you really, really cool people. Yes, even you, Fado. Pineapples and Thorns. You guys have a really great product. It's very consistent. I have never heard an episode where I find myself going, "Oh, this is a boring episode." When you guys have guests on, you have good guests that are on there. And you guys are just amongst yourselves. Like you have such great camaraderie and such great synergy, and I really enjoy it. So to both of you and to Peter, also to C Note, he's a really cool human being. I get along with him incredibly well. I love the niche that he's carved out for himself on Clash Tours. It's a very cool idea of this podcast that not only gives himself content that differentiates himself from other podcasts, but also the community that he has grown. And we've seen people join into the CFF. I've met so many people through clans that he ended up visiting. And I think that's really awesome. I love what he brings, not just to the podcast community, but to the Clash community by virtue of what he does to create them. the Reddit Talks Clash guys. I am clanmates with some of them. They are all amazing, really hardworking guys. They do a ton of work on the moderating side and then also use that experience and that exposure to bring us a very cool podcast with cool guests and fun topics. And they bring up stuff that I didn't necessarily know I was going to be interested in. And I'd say to everybody, if you're not listening to some of the other podcasts that are out there, listen to some of the other podcasts that are out there. The Clash Wolves I know are, kind of taking a little break since Big B retired, and the Clash with the Homies started up and they only got a couple episodes out, but this is an all ships rise in the high tide thing. So continue to support people. I am so honored to be a part of the community. Everybody in the podcast community has been very gracious and has embraced me and made me feel welcome. And I cannot thank you guys enough. And, first and foremost among that is the CFF. You guys have such an amazing organization, and I'm proud to, be CFF adjacent.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you.
That's a easy act to follow there, isn't it? All right. So, quick shout out, obviously, to Peter for, allowing me to take some time to, just make sure that all of the commitments I have within my family are being met. To Kat for having me back. I don't know when I'll be back, but I am not leaving for good. And definitely to just the magnificent people that make up Red Thorn. Every month we look up and there's a couple new names, and rarely is there. I mean, I want to see rarely. It is so common that everyone just fits in and fits in well, and it doesn't run itself, but I mean, it kind of feels like it does, and because there are some hard things that people do rostering for CWL and such. Magnus and Peter, I don't know where they get the time to manage all that, but there's so many people doing so many things within the clan, and I don't know, it's just such a wonderful place to be in the Clash universe.
Awesome. I just I want to shout you out, Trample. Thank you very much for coming on the show again, and use code Trample as always. Fado, thank you for coming on the show. Miss having you around to poke fun at me and all that stuff.
I would never.
Never, ever. And I also want to shout out to Fuzzy and Ghost Rider over at the Rated.
Mm-hmm.
Their banter and their shenanigans in Discord and in game always keep me laughing. They take a lot of they pull a lot of jokes on poor Storm, and she's very good natured and puts up with them. So, but they're having a great time. So, shout out to them.
I really shouldn't have limited that to Red Thorn. You're absolutely right. We were just commenting. It felt like just a couple months ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, where we would have 10v10s or 15v15s, and now we're back in that weird place we're at in Red Thorn. It's like, all right, we got to sit 3 or 4 just to get to 40. So just new names, people fitting in. It's great to see.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you everybody for listening. The CFF is a family of clans who love to play various games such as Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, among others. You can send questions or comments to us on Twitter at RedthornCOC. To get more information on our clans, events, and podcasts, join the CFF Discord at discord.gg/clashfiles.